Welcome TCS viewers to a special Sunday edition of our Camera Store videos. The boss has decided to leave Jordan and I completely unsupervised in the store today, which was dumb, so inventory is going to be out this month. And if we break anything on camera, please don't tell them. We're here to show you the brand new Canon XF105, which we got, of course, early for you folks, quite a bit early. We're hoping months early. This is a sneak preview on this camera. We deserve praise for this, and we do accept donations because, as you can see, I've got a bobby pin and a twist tie holding my lapel mic on. So please send donations to us, Jordan and Chris at the Camera Store. All right, now Canon gave us the XF105 here, but there's also an XF100 coming out, and they're basically the same camera. But we've got the XF105, which is the higher end unit. Really, all it adds is you get SDI output, which is great if you're going to nano flash, you're doing broadcast work, and of course you've got your gen lock, so you can time sync this with other cameras in use. So really, really high-end features to have. If you do need it, but you still want to keep the camera small, the XF105 is your one. But this is the Canon XF105. And what's very, very cool about this camera is it's Canon's smallest professional camera they've come out with. Then you compare it to the XF300, which is the big brother of this camera. It's huge and it's heavy, lots of dials, lots of controls. I mean, beautiful video camera, but this is a lot lighter, a lot smaller. Is it as good as an XF300? Well, not really. I mean, it's really trying to fill a different niche. What I do like about the XF105 is it's great for documentary work and run and gun. If any of you guys did any skateboarding or snowboarding videos quite a few years ago, you would remember the venerable Canon GL2. This is standard def, if anybody remembers using a standard def camera nowadays. But it was great and everybody loved it because you could take it out in the mountains, you could take it up ski hills, and it was super compact, super light, good zoom range, easy to use, and yet gave you some manual controls. I think this is going to replace the Canon GL2. I think this is going to be the new run-and-gun documentary-style camera. Let's talk a bit about some of the features here that are just noteworthy. Other than the size, it still does have XLR inputs, and this puts it into a class of cameras which are very compact but still give you high-end audio. You're getting a 10 times optical zoom. Not bad. It's about a 30 to 300 millimeter range on the lens, and full manual control, of course. I also like excellent battery life. This is going to suit people who want to do documentary work. This battery's also got this cool check light. Hopefully you guys can see that right next to my face, little green lights. Show you how much you have left. But we've been really impressed. The batteries they gave us have lasted 3-4 hours and keep going. I mean, there's a lot of battery life here so far. So really, really nice if you're out there in the middle of nowhere and you want to shoot without power. We're going to talk about this beautiful screen. It's gorgeous, really, really nice, high res, 920,000 pixels, seems to be a good standard today. And also very, very cool, kind of creepy though, is the infrared mode. It actually puts out an infrared emitter. We're going to show you that later. I mean, if you were doing police work or, I don't know, military stuff, or if you needed to do creepy peeping Tom stuff, or if you want to get famous the way Paris Hilton did, fantastic little attachment there. So we will show you how that works. So let's go play with this camera. Let's try not to break anything in the store. Let's have some fun. All right, let's talk about this infrared mode that we have here. Switch right under the camera, you click it up, and now you get this sort of black and white infrared. Now you can switch this to green as well if you find that cooler, like night vision. And this could really be useful for documentary filmmakers in low light, wildlife filmmakers in low light. The camera is actually emitting infrared light to light up your subject. From what we've seen, you get about 10 feet of really good illumination, and it could probably go 20 feet or so if you had to push it. Now, when you're in infrared, keep in mind that the camera is basically auto everything. It keeps the shutter speed nice and slow. It will use your gain to control exposure largely, and aperture is going to be wide open. But very, very cool effect. Let's take a look at what it looks like.
Chris? Hey, Chris.
Blah!
God damn it!
Okay, so let's talk quickly about some of the features on the camera and how it handles. Again, I've said it before, but really nice and light. This is a super portable camera. And being such a small body, you'd think it'd be hard to fit all the controls on here, but I would say Canon's done a pretty good job fitting all that they need to on here. Let's start at the top. Of course, XLRs we've talked about. You've got twin XLR inputs. I like the audio control. Under the back panel, you've got all your controls. I always like when Canon does that. Little window lets you see what you have set without changing it by accident. And again, you've got your decibel control for the audio as well for both channels. We do have a cold shoe. We do have a 1/4 inch thread. Nice features to have. As we go down, camera's got a great viewfinder. We've already talked about the screen, really, really sharp. And out here, you think it's such a small camera to have, very little space to put controls, but they've done a pretty good job of laying the camera out. But there are some things I don't like about it. You've got your standard iris and gain and shutter controls here, and intuitively you would think that they could be controlled and toggled through this wheel, but this really just controls iris. Gain's going to be a push button, and shutter you actually have to then adjust with the toggle switch up here on the screen. Once you get used to it, it works. Not the most intuitive, but it's okay. Our main focusing ring here, we can focus with it, we can do zoom or iris, you can select that. And very nice, easy to use white balance selector and of course custom white balance button as well. Underneath you've got your dual card slot. This is compact flash, dual slot and hot swappable, but this camera does need big cards and it needs fast cards. Let's talk about its megabits per second rate. This camera does shoot 50 megabits per second. That is beautiful because it handles action really, really clean. I mean, this is really, really high throughput. Beautiful video, no artifacts, great for motion, but it's going to mean expensive fast cards. 32 gig card would maybe give you an hour and 20 minutes at that 50 megabit per second rate. So you're going to need a lot of cards to get a lot of video out of this camera. The zoom on this is a pretty standard 10 times zoom, which is appropriate for the size of this camera, but I do like that they went wide with it. It's approximately 30 to 300, so nice wide angle, wider than most competition in this range. Very, very nice touch. Now let's talk quickly about the frame rates on this camera. It's a pretty standard package from Canon. At 1080 you guys can do 24p and 30p frame rates and you can shoot 60i. Now if you drop down to 720 you get 60p. You also have overcranking so you can do some fun slow-mo, and the camera does have an intervalometer. We did take some footage around the store, you can see that here. That brings us to the chip size on this camera. It's an interesting design choice because they've gone with a 1/3" chip size. Now, that's smaller than some of their consumer cameras even. I know they're trying to keep things compact and small. That's probably the idea behind it. It is a brand new sensor, and considering the smaller chip size, Canon's done pretty good on the low light. Let's take a look at that next. All right. Let's kill these lights and take a look at the performance of the XF105 in the dark. Now, as we've already talked about, this camera does have a fairly small chip size with that 1/3". That's a little bit smaller than you normally expect out of a camera of this sort of caliber. How's that going to hurt its low light performance? What kind of damage are we going to get? Well, one thing that I like that Canon's done on this brand new sensor, even though it's a smaller size, they haven't crammed extra pixels into it for any sort of still performance. It's strictly for video, and that should help our performance here in low light. Let's take a look at the footage here of this in the dark. We've got this set to 18 decibel gain, so it's a pretty high rating. And as you can see, we certainly do have some noise, absolutely. But color accuracy, I would say, is still pretty well maintained. I mean, take a look at it for yourself, judge it for yourself. And let's compare this against something which has larger chip size, something like the Canon XF100, its bigger brother. Now here you've got 3 chips at a 1/3" size. And as you can see, we're getting much, much better control at 18 decibels. Color accuracy still very good though. So is this camera going to compete against something with a larger chip size? Maybe not. But look at the size and the compactness. In this kind of design, I think it's doing a pretty good job of holding together an image quality, and I think it's because Canon's designed this sensor for specific low light performance. Now when you folks are watching at home, a lot of our videos where we're out in the field or outdoors, videos like our Pentax 645D one where we went out in the mountains, we shoot that on the JVC HM100. I mean, the thing is, the camera's so small, it's so portable, but it gives us things like the XLR ports, which we need for our lav mics, and it gives us things like manual control and beautiful image quality. We love that camera, and we love the quality that comes out of it. But now we have an alternative because Canon's now come up with this XF100 and 105 series, and it really does compete in a very similar niche. We get the XLR audio, we get the manual control, it's about the same size and certainly very compact and very light, easy to pack. So then where does a camera like this set itself apart? Why would we pick this over something else? The zoom range is one. Having that wide angle 30mm zoom range is very unique and very hard to find in a camera this small. The other great thing about this camera though is the codec, and this is a big one. 50 megabit per second codec recording at 422. What that means is certainly any action you have, any sort of journalism, any sort of thing going on in the scene, you could be doing war zones, you could be doing crazy stuff, sports, anything like that, this camera is going to handle it, quality's not going to drop. But the 422 codec also gives us really good color information and a lot of detail to work with, and that's also incredibly unique in a camera of this size and price point. So this camera in good light is going to be a powerhouse for you guys out there. This is a great documentary camera, a great journalism camera. You can be sure you're going to get detail, and you're going to be sure that any sort of action and event happening, the camera can handle. So, is there a compromise? Well, yeah.
the low light, certainly. That smaller chip did a pretty good job in low light, but it's not going to compete with the JVC, and it's not going to compete with some of the bigger cameras out there. If you're going to shoot more outdoor work, but also indoor work or low light work, and you're okay carrying a heavier camera, you might be better off looking at Canon's XF300. If you need portability, you need compactness, this is certainly a good alternative. It does handle low light very well considering the small chip size, and I would say in good light, it's going to take stunningly good video.